Yes, Amit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so guys, in the last lecture, we have seen how we can, spin up a server on EC2. So that was just, just a demo, and with reference to, we are going to see how the EC2 actually works, and what are the different types of instance and launch types. Okay, so that was just to get a quick hands-on on the server, and I'll start explaining those. The things which we configured in a more so that I can have a reference. So that is why we quickly fired up the instance last time. Okay, so I know some of them faced the issue of creating a EC2, and I think I have helped some of them to solve that. Okay, by taking the individual. If any of you are still facing, you can anytime reach me at the end of this, right? Okay. Right. So let us talk about security group. So when we created, EC2 instance last time, we selected something called a security group. Okay. So what is a security group? Security group are the basics of network security in Amazon Web Services. Okay. They control how the traffic flows to and from the EC2 instance, right? So in this picture, you can see that this is the security group in the blue color, and this is the EC2 instance. Okay, and these arrows, they denote the inbound and outbound. So security group, okay, we can configure all these rules in the security group, which says that allow 22 port to this EC2 instance from either all or from a specific IP, okay, or a specific network, or from a specific yeah, we had an option called as my IP, right? So that automatically populates the public IP of from where you are doing all those activities, right? So you can say it is kind of a firewall to the EC2 instance. Okay, and just the thing that in security group, you cannot deny or drop a packet. Okay, so for example, if you want to deny from a specific IP, you cannot do that in security group. Okay, so there is this network ACL in VPC. So when we are onto the VPC topic, we will see, I mean, how the network ACL works, right? And in the network ACL, we have to write the rules where we can say that, drop the connection from a specific IP, okay, or drop a request from a specific IP or a specific network. Okay, so security group is nothing but it is a firewall which controls the inbound and the outbound traffic to a particular port. Okay, uh, major network issues are due to the wrong configuration of security group. So, as and when you start practicing more, if one of your service is not able to talk to another service, or you are not able to access a server on the EC2 or on the AWS, right? So the first thing what we have to do is check the security configuration of the security group, because that is where the most of the people they configure it wrong. Okay, or some people just forget adding few of the IPs and that stuff. So major network related issues are due to wrong configuration of security group. So always keep in mind that when we design a security group, so have a look at the rules properly, I mean how they are set, and what are the rules we have written there, all the inbound and the outbound rules, and then you can create. So it's not that you cannot edit it, you can edit it at any point of time, but still some people face the connectivity issue. So it's always better to you know uh, write all the rules properly and carefully, right? So we will see how to use security group to allow inbound and outbound ports. Okay, so after all these topics, we are going to spin up the EC2 instance one more time, and that will clear all your doubts of these topics what we are covering. Okay, so we are going to create a sec, and I'll show you that you can create a security group individually and then attach it to the EC2 instance later, okay, at any point of time. And one EC2 can have multiple security group attached. Okay, so we will all see that in the when we do a demo on the EC2. Okay, yeah. So let's dig a bit deep. So security groups are equal to or act as a firewall for the EC2 instance. So as I said that, they act as a firewall. Now here, if you see the rule, okay, so it says that HTTP and protocol is TCP, port is 80 and allowed from anywhere. And this is just a description. So if you are having a web server, obviously we create a web server to serve to others, right? To serve to the world. So what we do is, and by default, all the web servers, they work on port 80. And when you hit a URL in a browser, that comes to port 80 by default. Okay, if there is a HTTP, so it hits to the port 80, and we have allowed the source as from everywhere. So from anywhere, if you hit this to the resource where this security group is attached, it will straight away allow port 80. Okay, then if you see the second rule which says SSH, so SSH would be access from only a specific IP. Okay, so this is the public IP 122.149.196.85. Okay, so only this IP can do a SSH on this resource to which this security group would be attached. Okay, and then there is one custom TCP rule as well on a. So these rules AWS has given us as predefined from the drop down, and you can also write a custom TCP rule on the specific port. Okay, so for example, if you want to hit an instance on this port, so here in this example, my Java application is running on this port 4567, right? And I want that application to be accessed from anywhere on the planet. So I have given a access all. Okay. Okay. So this is this is a security group diagram. Here you can see we have a T2 micro. Okay. And these are other instances. Okay, so if you see that this T2 micro, okay, it has security group 1 that is inbound. Okay, so anything with a, okay, so for example, this T2, okay, it is attached with security group. Okay, that is security group 1. I have written a security group which says that allow the traffic on port 123 from this security group. So you can also mention another security group in security group. Okay, I know this is confusing, but if you when we will demonstrate this, that would be much clearer to you guys. Okay, so you can attach a different security group to another security group. So for example, this security group in the center, the blue color, I said that allow port 123 from security group 1, okay, to all the resources to which the security group 1 is attached, it would be allowed. So for example, security group is attached to 10 other EC2 instances. Okay, so they can pass through this security group, the blue one, okay, on port 123. So what I have told is, a specific security group or all the resources attached to a specific security group are allowed to hit this security group or the resource attached to this security group. Okay. So when we will do a practical, so that would be more clear to you guys. Okay. So for example, this is the EC2 instance. Okay, and this is the security group attached to this instance, right? So what I'm saying is all the connections on port 123, okay, on all the resources. So for example, this security, consider that this security group 1 is attached to 10 EC2 instances. Okay, so these 10 EC2 instances can access this server on port 123 because I have said that, allow security group 1 resources on port 123. Okay, and the same goes for security group 2 as well. Okay, I'll just take a different color. Yeah, here. So this is security group 1, this is security group 2, right? And if you see that security, I have not allowed security group in this security group 3, right? So on port 123, these would be dropped because in this security group, let's call it security GRP. Okay, so in this security group, I have not mentioned allow connection from this security group, that is security group 3. That is why the connection would be dropped. Okay, or it will not have access to the port 123 on this security group. Okay, so let's say that this blue security group is attached to 10 more EC2 instances here. Okay, so depending on what you have written here, so in this scenario, security group 3, all the resources which are attached to security group 3, those cannot connect to these of my or 10 of my EC2 instances. Okay, because all the security these security groups are attached to these instances. Okay, so when we will do a practical, that these things would be much clearer. So we are just saying that you can mention a different security group in one security group. Okay, so we will see this when we do a practical, and that time I think it would be more clear to you guys. Okay, so this is about security group. Okay, so I'll quickly show you how that happens. Okay, I'll go in EC2. Okay, and security groups. Okay, so I have security, I have 1 2 3 4 5, I have 5 security groups. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create a security group which says uh, SG allow SSH. Okay, so this is the name of my security group. Okay, and then this again I'll add some descriptions. Okay, there is only one VPC default, so we will select that. Okay, and then I'll attach the rules inbound. Okay, so I'll say that SSH from anywhere. Okay, and outbound is access to all, so that my server or the resource which is attached to this security group, okay, can go outside to talk. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll create a security group. Okay, so I cannot use special. Okay, now we have one security group created which says that anyone can do a SSH to this security group or the resources attached to this. So what I'll do is I'll quickly create an instance. Okay, I'll take Amazon Linux. We'll cover all this. So I'm doing this to quickly demonstrate. 1A public. This is the hard drive security group. Yeah. So if you see, we have created this test, allow SSH, right? So we have created this allow SSH security group, and now I'm attaching this security group to the EC2 instance which we are creating. I'll quick click on review and then click on launch. Yeah, I do have a console key. Okay. Now if you click on this instance or the server, then this at the bottom, this kind of gives you the information, okay, on the details of that EC2 instance. Okay, so what is the instance ID, the state, what is the instance type, the configuration, and what is the private IP, and what is the public IP and public DNS, right? What VPC it belongs to, what subnet it belongs to, and everything. So all the details of this EC2 instance you can find under description. Okay, I'll clear this. Right now that our server is up, we will try to access it. Okay, using this console key. So I'll quickly copy. This is the public IP. I click on auth, then browse to the key. Uh, Okay, so I think there's a problem. So this console key is in my other laptop. Okay, so we don't have that key here. So let's launch another one with the key which I already have here. So let me confirm that once. Yeah, so I have a cyber key. Okay, cyber-key. So I'll quickly spin up another instance. 1A public, one instance, add storage, add tag, security group. Yeah, and the newly attached security group, and launch. I'll terminate this one, guys. Okay, so in the description, I can get the public IP of that. So I'll quickly copy it, go to my party session. Click on open. Now, if you see, when I do a putty or a SSH, so let me show you that. So when we are doing a putty, okay, to that instance, you can see that port is 22. Okay, so we are connecting to that server on port 22, which is the default port for SSH. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll quickly attach a public IP. Okay, this is the public IP. This is the port on 22. Auth, browse the key again, and open. Now it is asking to log, and I log in as EC2-user. Okay, service server refused a key. Okay, let me check, guys. Uh, Now, if you see, there is a security group option here, and if I click on view inbound rule, it says that 22 is allowed from everywhere. Okay, let me try to access. Sorry. Okay, server refused your key. Okay, guys, let me have a look if this is the exact, because I had created two keys. Cyber hyphen key, and so I'll try to log in using MobaXterm. Guys, just bear with me. Set to user at and the public IP. Okay, so it says permission denied. So I'll quickly check on the key because I had created two. So let me create another key. Okay, this is cyber SSH key. Okay, dot ppk, and yeah. So they have given us option of PE and ppk. Okay, so I'll quickly create a ppk, and now it is I'm still storing it on my desktop as cyberfrat SSH key. Okay, I'll quickly create one more instance using this. I think there is a confusion between the keys, so I'll create a Ubuntu 18. This is the one a public. Okay. Okay, so this is like we have our allow. Okay. Okay, so here you can see we have logged in to this. So okay, I know the font is very small, so let me change the font. 20 and bold. Okay, so guys, you see that we are into Ubuntu system. Okay, the server which we created. I will terminate all the other to clear out the confusion. Okay, so we have only one EC2 instance running. Okay, and if you take a look at the security group here, okay, inbound is 22 allow from anywhere. Okay, and outbound is the server can go anywhere, okay, on any port or and using any protocol, right? So this is a security group which is attached to that server and due to which we are able to SSH on that. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let us go ahead and install Apache on this. Okay, so sudo apt update. So these are the Ubuntu commands which we have seen in our Linux session. So this is why I took those commands. So we can play around this. Okay, so update is done. Sudo apt install Apache 2. Yes. Okay, I'll start the service. Sudo service Apache 2 start. Okay, so I have started the Apache. So if I do a curl on myself on this instance, okay, so I get an output from Apache, okay, saying that it works, right? So I can say that Apache, even if I do a ps -ef and Apache, so I can see the Apache is running. Okay, now let me hit this IP. Okay, we are hitting it in the browser, which says that we are hitting it on a port 80, right? In the URL, when we give any IP or the host name, so it will hit 80. Now see, nothing is happening. Okay, now what I will do is I will create another security group. Let's go to security group, create a security group which says allow HTTP. Okay, or you can say allow Apache, right? And I can add a rule saying they have given us a predefined rules. Okay, so HTTP port 80 from anywhere. Okay, and outbound is you always have to in the outbound you always have to mention allow everything outside so that server can reach out. Okay, okay, description, I'll quickly add this description and create a security group. Okay, now if I come to the instance page again, okay, I go in actions. Okay, we are going to see this, but for now I just want to explain you the security group stuff. Okay, then there is an option which says change security groups. Right now you can see that it has already checked one which is attached. Right now we created this allow Apache, so I'll attach this as one. If you can see that you can allow as many security groups to this. Okay, but for us these two would work for us, right? So assign. Okay, now if you go here and say view inbound rules, you can see now 22, okay, is allowed from anywhere and port 80 is also allowed from anywhere, and these are two different security groups. Okay, Now we will come here in the browser and hit a refresh, and we get a Ubuntu or the default page of Apache, okay, which says it works, right? So we have what we have seen here is you can attach multiple security group to the server, okay, and my each of the security group can have different rules, right? Now I was talking about security group in a security group, right? So let me do one thing. uh, to demonstrate this, let me create another security group which will say allow sorry, so we can say SSH2, okay. So this is my second SSH security group, okay. So I'll say, okay, so so this security group, when I attach it to some EC2 instance, anyone can do a SSH on that, okay. Now I'll create one more EC2 instance. I just want to show that when I attach a second security group to that instance, and I'll show how I can mention a security group in the first one. Okay, so I'll again take a Ubuntu server, take a access in MobaXterm. Okay, so I'll this is the first server. This is the second. Okay, instance state. I can filter out. Okay, so show me all the running ones so that there is no confusion. Okay, so this is the first server to which we have two security group attached, that is allow SSH and allow Apache, right? We have second server to which there is a different security group attached, that is SSH2, right? Now what I'll do is I'll take both the servers here. So the first server 42, uh, okay, so we have already, okay, we already have it right here. Yeah, so clear out the confusion. I'll take the SSH of first one and I'll keep them side by side. Okay, so cyberfrat key. Okay, okay, so this is server one. Change settings, appearance, I'll make it to 18 bold. Okay, so this is server one, and on the other tab I will hit server 2. We have used the same key, so I can use, okay, I will change the settings. Okay, guys. So this is server 1 and this is server 2. Okay, clear? So now what I want to demonstrate is server 2 can SSH to server 1 using security group. Okay, now if I want to SSH to the first server, okay, my first server says that okay, anyone can do a SSH. Okay, now let's change that. I don't want anyone, I want only a specific IP. I'll go in security group, allow SSH inbound, click on edit from my IP. Okay, so server 1 can be SSH'd only from my public IP, that is my home public IP, right? So we still have our session, right? So now let us try to SSH from server 2 to server 1. Okay, so this is my both the server. Now since they are in the same network, I can talk to the other server with its private IP. Okay, so we'll see this in the VPC, how the instances talk to each other. But for now, to access server 1, we need a cyberfrat key 1, right? So what I'll do is I'll quickly cyberfrat hyphen key. Okay. Guys, I'm on the other screen. I'm just copying the content of my key. Okay. Okay, I'm not able to find it. Cyberfrat key. Yeah, got it. Okay, so this is the key. I'll go on server 2, okay, and paste it here. Okay, so this is server 1 and I'll try to do a SSH now. I would like to change the permission to read only for the user. Okay, then I'll do Ubuntu at the private IP. So that is 172.31.22.116. Okay, now if you see, we are not able to do a SSH. Okay, so because my server 1 can be SSH'd only from my public IP. Uh, if you see the security groups, SSH from my IP and not from anywhere else. Even if it is in the AWS network, okay, it cannot do a SSH, right? Okay, now what I will do is I'll go to the security group which says allow SSH, okay, and then edit rule. I will say also allow SSH, okay, from security. So we have created another security group, right? So allow SSH. and we have SSH2, which is attached to the second server. Okay, now what I'm saying is any resources which is attached to this security group can do a SSH, right? So if I click on server 1 and check the rules, okay, now here in the source you can see 22 can also be accessed from resources attached to this security group, and the resource which is attached is this second server. Okay, so if you see the last three are 238, right, the security group. So if I come here and check the security group, I'll open it in a new tab. Yeah, so 238, right? So this security group is attached to server 2. Okay, now I'll try to do a SSH from that. See, now it is allowing me. Okay, so the key is different, the format is different. Okay, because it is a PPK, I might have to convert it into the PEM, but you get the point, right? Now I am able to talk to it. The authentication is the second part, but now I was able to reach to its 22 port, right? So if I remove it again, so if I go in the first server, go to allow SSH and remove this, okay, and then again try to do a SSH from server 2 to server 1. See, now it is waiting. It is not able to reach it, so probably it would time out, right? So here we have demonstrated that we can write a rule for another security group, okay, and all the resources attached to the second security group, those will have the permissions in and out depending on what rule you have written, right? Now even if I try to do a curl on this IP, yeah, curl would work. Why? Because it is open to all, right? See, this IP is of server 1, right? And I was able to curl it, and I got a Apache page, right? So here I want to demonstrate that we can use security groups in security groups. Okay. So when you do a practice, more and more, you will get this more clear. And anyways, I'm there on your group. So if you're stuck, okay, and at any time, just you can drop me a message on WhatsApp as well. Okay, but just a sec, guys. Right. So we have demonstrated that one security group can be used in another security group, right? So that is what I was explaining you here in this, okay, in this slide. Okay. All right. Okay. So now let's go ahead. Okay. The next topic is elastic IP. Okay. So when we create instance, okay, when we create a server or instance, AWS provides us with a public IP. Okay. So this is the public IP of server 1, that is 13.232.15.42. Okay. Now, when we stop and start the instance, there is a chance that its public IP would be changed. Okay. So when we get the public IP from AWS. Okay, so there is a chance that we might when we stop or start the instance, there is a chance that the public IP would be changed. Okay, so let's say if you have your website running, okay, on that server, and if suddenly and your URL is pointing to that IP, so for example amit.com, okay, is pointing to that public IP, this one. Okay, and if the IP changes, then there would be a problem, right? So amit.com cannot reach that IP because it is not updated in the DNS. Okay, if it happens in the daytime and we see it, then that is fine, we can do it. But let's say you're sleeping somewhere around 2 at in the morning, 2:30, there is the change in the public IP. Okay, so you'll no people can reach to your site. Okay, so if you want the IP should never change, we must have an elastic IP. Okay, so elastic IP, okay, is one of the service in EC2, okay, where we get the IP from AWS and attach it to the instance. Okay, we will demonstrate that. An elastic IP is a public IP version 4 IP you own as long as you don't delete it. Okay, so as long as you don't delete it, the public IP is with you. Okay, and it does not change. Okay, so it's yours. You can attach it to one instance at a time. So one elastic IP can attach to one server or one EC2 instance and not more than that. Okay, with an elastic IP, you can hide the failure of instance or software. So what does this mean is, let's say one of your server, okay, is down to the public IP, which is the elastic IP, it is attached to one of the server and it is down, right? So I can anytime remove that elastic IP and attach it to the another server. Okay, and you can start serving your website from another server, right? So you can hide your failures in that way. Okay, so by rapidly reattaching the same public address to another instance in your account, right? So I can detach that public instance and attach it to the another instance. Okay, by default you can have 5 elastic IPs in your account. Okay, so AWS can provide you 5 elastic IPs. If you want more, you have to raise a ticket to the AWS from the support center. Okay, and probably in half an hour, you just mention in the ticket saying I want 10 more or 20 more public IPs. Okay, and then you raise a ticket and they'll give you those public IPs or the elastic IPs. Okay, now let's try to demonstrate on if the IP really changes. Okay, so instant state running. Okay, so clear the confusion. So we have two servers running. Okay, so the public IP is 13 dot, so I'll uh, type it somewhere. Okay, so this is server 1 public IP. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll stop this server 1. So notice if you stop, the put is saying that you lost your connectivity, obviously. Yeah. Okay, so now because we have shown only running, we are not seeing the stopped one. So I'll again add a stopped as well. Right. So if you notice now there is no public, when the server is stopped, it doesn't display you the public IP or the public DNS, right? Now it is stopped and we will start again. If you see, uh, yeah, okay, we got the first one. If you see, the IP is changed now. Okay, so I'll go here and paste it below this to see, right? So the IP is changed. Now, if your website was running on this IP and you did a maintenance on your server and stopped it and restarted it, now you have different IP, right? Earlier, I mean, your DNS entry would be pointing here, right? So uh, Amit.com was pointing to this IP, right? Now the IP is changed. Okay, we don't have that IP anymore. Okay, we won't be able to see that, right? So then we again have to change this to this IP, right? So let's say this happens like 5 times a day. Okay, then it becomes a very much bigger problem, right? So to solve this, we have an option of elastic IP. Okay, so here on the left hand side, you can see under network and security, there is elastic IP. Okay, now what you say to AWS is allocate an elastic IP to me. Okay, then they have an option says Amazon's pool of IP. Yeah, I want it from Amazon. Okay, allocate. Okay, so if you see, we got a public IP, this one. Yeah, so this one was created. This was already there. Okay, and this one was created just now. Okay, now what I can do is I can go to actions. Okay, and I can say associate elastic IP. When I click this, okay, then it asks me two questions. If I want to associate this elastic IP to an instance or to a network interface card. Okay, so for now, we will attach it to the instance. Okay, I click on the instance, we have first server. Okay, I'll select that, right? And then there is this option called as reassociate. So allow this address to be reassociated. I'll click on associate. Okay, now here you can see that it tells you that this public IP is attached to this instance, right? Now if I go in instance and click on first server, okay, now we can see we have elastic IP attached. Okay, and we don't see a public IP now. Sorry. So this is the public IP, right? If you go in second, we get a public IP, but it doesn't say that it is a elastic IP. Whereas in server one, it says this is the elastic IP, right? Now we already have, so I'll try to connect now to this instance using this IP. How do I do that? Go to party, uh, new session, and this public IP. Okay, I was able to reach it. This is Ubuntu. Yes, okay, and I'm in that. Okay, change settings, appearance. Right, So I am into this server. So if you see, this is the same private IP. So private IP didn't change. Okay. But we change the, now even if we stop, so let's do one thing. Let us install Apache. Okay. Here as well. Okay. It is already there. Okay. So if I check, yeah, it is running, right? So I can quickly copy this. Okay. And we get the Apache page on the elastic IP this time. Okay. So this is the elastic IP. Okay. Now what we will do is, I will slightly modify that Apache. So what I'll say is echo. Okay. This is the, so I'll go to vi/etc, sorry, var www.html index.html and the sudo. So this is the default Apache page, what you can see here. Okay. This one, right? So I'll just change it. So I'll delete everything. How am I deleting is, I've just hold the D key. So it is deleting all the lines in the using the VIM editor. It's a big file, so it is taking time. Okay. Now that is an empty file. Now I'll add insert hello from server 1, right? Now if I click refresh, we see that hello from server 1, right? So now this we are hitting the elastic IP. Okay. Now let's say that, okay, let me come to server 2. Okay. And this is server 2, guys. Okay. What I will do is I'll quickly create another web page here as well. So what I'll do is I'll go to var www. Okay, so Apache is not installed. So sudo apt install Apache 2 here on the server 2. %98 complete. So because this is a T2 micro, it takes some time. Sudo service Apache to start. Okay. And now what I will do is I'll hit the public IP of the second server and we will see a Apache page. Okay. But now if you see that when I hit okay, the public IP of the second server, I am not able to get the Apache page. So this is a network, and what do we check first is the security group. Okay, now my inbound says that only 22 is allowed. Okay, and I'm hitting on 80, right? So 80 is not allowed. So what I can do is I can attach a security group which says allow 80 from all, right? So I'll go in networking, change security, and we have a security group for that, right? Assign security group, and You just have to hit a reload, right? And now we can see this is the Apache page of server 2. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll quickly change it. So I'll do sudo echo. What was the welcome from server 1? So I will write welcome from server 2. So how do I write welcome from server 2? Okay, the output of this, push it in var www html index.html. Okay, all right, so I need a sudo both. Okay, now when I hit refresh, okay, I think it didn't do that, so let's do it manually. /var, yeah, it didn't do. So I can simply do 500 TD. Okay, and say welcome to server 2, right? Save and exit. Okay, hit welcome to server 2, right? So we have two IPs. This one, okay, server 2 is a public IP from AWS. Server 1 is the elastic IP, right? Okay, so I want to demonstrate that. Let's say server 2 is server 1 is down. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, due to some reason server 1 is down, so we will stop it. Okay, now when you hit server 1 IP, see it keeps on rotating. It is not able to connect, right? So this IP is not able to connect to server 1. So basically my IP is down, right? Because the server itself is down. Okay, what I can do is quickly I can go into public IP, elastic IP, right? This is the one which is attached. I can quickly come here, disassociate from server 1 and associate again back to the second server. Okay, now if I hit a reload again, we can see it is now connected to server 2, right? So using elastic IP, we can hide our downtime. This is what one of the point is saying, right? So hide the failure of an instance or a software by rapidly reattaching the same public IP or the elastic IP to the another instance, right? Okay, so we have demonstrated that. Okay, now if you quickly go and observe the second instance, right now, okay, now you can see that elastic IP has been attached to the second server, right? So this is all about elastic IP. Okay, so it's 11:20. Guys, we will take a break of 20 minutes. Okay, and then we will start with